Gladpask. This is the Prince of Macedon doing a commentary video for Napoleon Total War multiplayer. I command the Swedes, and my opponent is old dude in command of the French. We'll look at my army first, you can just read it. And now we'll look at the French army, and you can just read that too. And if you'll notice, my opponent has two guards. One is actually an old guard, and the other is a young guard. But because I was feeling gangsta, I decided just to write guards for both of them. And you can see my opponent put two of his lancers on his extreme left, almost in no man's land between both of our armies. Anyways, I'm going to increase the minimap, and I'll make it a mega map. And I am the blue ones, the blue dots on the minimap, and my opponent is the red one on the minimap. And I'm going to launch my cav on an early charge here, and I'm going to chase those lancers out of no man's land. And unfortunately, my opponent is going to run away, and I really wanted to have a clash early on, but my opponent refused the battle. I did manage to kill most of the lancers in one of those units though, but I'm going to have to recall my horses before they get too close to my opponent's artillery pieces. And at the beginning you can see that my opponent had, I believe, a 12-pounder and a howitzer. And as far as my artillery is concerned, I only have one howitzer. But yeah, there's my opponent's cav forces, and there's my opponent's guards. The first one are his old guards, second one are his young guards. And you can see him launching his howitzers at my horses as I run away. Alright, a few minutes later, my opponent is going to retaliate. He launches this attack behind my center here. And that was a very bold move from my opponent, but he really underestimated my micro abilities. So I turned around my line infantry, and I also brought back my cav from the first charge, and I brought them back to intercept his lancers here. But after a minute of this attack here, my opponent's lancers here routed, and I think he just wanted to suicide his lancers into my artillery pieces. That's something that I did successfully in my last video. Alright, so a few minutes later, I was able to bring up my army. You can see on the minimap that I advanced all the way, like way past the halfway line. So I'm pretty much at the back of the map now, trying to attack my opponent. And here you can see my skirmishers are getting some really nice shots off on these guard units. And my opponent does have skirmishers. He has 3, I have 4. But I was able to spread my skirmishers out more effectively than this. So here my opponent had the misfortune of having to take a lot of skirmish fire from my troops before he got into range of my guys. Alright, over here, my opponent brought the rest of his lancers out to the far wing here, and I decided to charge them again. And here you can see my opponent has his Dutch Guard lancers here. Those guys are pretty deadly, and they're actually pretty expensive too. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. I mean, you want those nice units, you gotta pay for it. But anyways, my horses are semi-outmatched by his horses here because my guys are depleted, and that's not really my concern. I just want to keep his horses away from my infantry, and I want to keep the infantry and the cav battles separate. Alright, here's the action on my left flank, and you can see I divided my line infantry and my grenadiers separately. I put the line infantry on my left flank, and occupy my right flank are my guard units. And that just helps me in terms of organizing my army. But yeah, my opponent's bringing his Fusiliers down to help out his Voltigeurs. And what am I doing? Alright, I'm losing some of my horses in this horse fight, but that's something that I expected. But I'm glad that my other 2 horses are holding out. So yeah, once again, this isn't really my concern here. I just want to keep his guys busy. I mean, it sucks if you're one of my horsemen, but it sucks even more if you're one of my generals. Alright, so those red dudes, those were his Dutch Guard Lancers, in case you were wondering. And I lost one of my units over here, and I believe that was one of my Lifeguard foot units. That kinda sucks, but I still have more troops fighting, so you can't stop to dwell on little matters like that. And this is the action on my left flank here. This is my line infantry. They are trading fire with some French Fusiliers, and I think still some Voltigeurs. And right now we're just having a general line fight right now. Like, we're both standing toe-to-toe against each other. And here my opponent's actually getting some good flanking fire on my line infantry. So I'm going to have to move my line infantry back a little bit so that they're not exposing their their side like that. It's never good to be shot like that in the side. So I'm gonna bend this line back here, put them back in line. And just then, you heard my advisor telling me that all hope was lost and that I should pretty much just surrender. And so I started rummaging through my advisor's resume. I just wanted to see why I actually hired this guy in the first place. Alright, here is the action on my right wing. Looks like both of our horses were getting slaughtered, and that was to my benefit, actually. And there you can see my opponent's young guard getting routed from the battlefield. And I forgot to show it, but I also routed his old guard as well. So I was pretty happy that I routed his elite foot units already. And you can see I have some blinking Swedish flags too, so that means I lost some of my units as well. And over here, those were my horses who ran, but the cav fight on the very far right, that was a very destructive fight, and I was very happy that my opponent only had one horse squadron to get out of that fight. And so from that point on, I wasn't too worried about his horse force anymore, because he would have a hard time charging my main line infantry units, like especially my lifeguard units, these guys. Alright, so I still have my howitzer firing, and my opponent still has all of his artillery pieces firing as well, but I am making some headway into his main infantry body. And there you can see my general gave a little boost in morale to those nearby units. And here you can see in this close-up that I brought my line infantry up just in time to ward off his French Fusiliers from routing my skirmishers in that sector. And now you can see I am moving my guard units around the battlefield. I'm trying to redistribute my men to where they're actually needed. And here's a close-up of my guard units. You get the cool-looking shakos. But I'm going to keep that guard unit right there where they're needed. And there's some furious action on the center here as well. And my opponent started switching his artillery piece to the canister shot. But I think my guys were out of effective range of the canisters, so I don't think I'm getting that much damage from them. But I do want to drive those infantry away from the artillery so that I can advance on his artillery pieces. And looks like I lost one of my Jaeger units. But, you know, I'm really glad that they're leaving the battlefield, because that means they can go home and go back to hunting rabbits and stuff. Alright, you can see my opponent's blasting me with his howitzer and also his 12-pounder. And now I'm going to move within effective range of his artillery so I can rout them from the battlefield. This is the extreme left flank here. And these guys are duking it out with those French Fusiliers across from them. And you can see that the action is it's very widespread right now. But I brought my general over to this sector just because I figured that this was the more critical side here. And here I'm moving my center up, and on my very right, my opponent's cav is coming in, and my Jaegers are kind of out of position to receive them. I'll show you that fight later. Okay, here my guys actually ran out of ammo, so I'm just going to send these guys on a bayonet mission here. And they're going to charge those Fusiliers who were opposite them earlier, and hopefully my guys make the most out of that, because I really don't want to write letters to their parents. So let's watch the close-up here, and we're going to see the initial clash here. And those Fusiliers are kind of stunned right now, but they're going to countercharge. It's really a good thing that these guys were able to fight in the shade, because that would have been horrible if they fought out in the sun. Okay, so here's my opponent's cav units. He actually routed my Jaegers earlier. And here's going for the backs of my other Jaeger, but my line infantry just behind them were able to rout them. So there go all the cav from the battlefield, except for our general units. But I don't really consider the general units to be cav units. Okay, so I routed one of his artillery pieces. I believe that was his howitzer that I routed. Yes, it was. And now we're going to advance on his 12-pounder here. So we're going to take aim, and now we're going to give them the business. And just behind this 12-pounder, he also has his general staff unit. And check out those guys on horseback. They do the right thing. Since they're already mounted, they're just going to stroll out of there, you know, as if nothing happened. Alright, so my opponent is down to his general unit now. Oh, I also think the howitzer crew came back, but they don't have their gun anymore. So here I'm going to stop with my line infantry, and I'm going to take aim at his general staff unit. And my opponent's going to do the courageous thing, and he's going to charge into my advancing infantry. And look at that, he knocked tons of my guys back. That was pretty sweet. But my foot soldiers are going to swarm this general staff unit, and his general staff is going to have to fight my guys off like fleas here, but they have so many dudes just jumping all around like little jackrabbits. And right there is his general right there, the one wearing the pure blue overcoat. And there goes his general. So that means my guys are going to pickpocket his pockets and see what kind of loot they can make off with. And that is the end of the battle. And good game to my opponent. Hope you guys enjoyed. You can read the results there.